Good Monday morning, everybody. Welcome. I am Angie Callen, your host of No More Mondays, the podcast where we believe you can have an amazing career or business and a thriving life on your terms. Every week, I get to talk to amazing people doing amazing things who are not only walking that walk, but have great resources to help you live and work more authentically. And I am busting at the seams with excitement today because my guest is somebody who I not only admire a ton, but I love to hang out with. And he's become one of my absolute favorite people on LinkedIn and probably off of LinkedIn in life. And if you've ever scrolled through his posts, you'll know exactly why. Liam Darmody is a personal branding and community building pro who has an almost magical way of being fully himself in LinkedIn and in his content. Genuine, human, funny. You can see the chili pepper next to his name, so that should give you a teaser. And he does it in a way that also helps him build his business and attract the right people. We all want to be authentic in real life and online, but there can be a fine line between being real, putting too much out there, or trying to posture. And Liam and I have bonded over our ability to somehow magically create that balance. And today we are digging into how you can do it too. From piles of laundry and those aforementioned chili peppers to being somebody people love to learn from, it's time for Liam and I to have some fun. Liam Darmody, welcome to No More Mondays.
Yeah, what's up, Angie? Thank you for having me. That was the nicest introduction ever.
It just makes me happy.
Me too. I'm super pumped.
Anytime I get to hang out with Liam is just a good time.
Which is like almost daily.
Is almost daily. We'll have complete side conversations about the most random things. And don't worry, we're not going to go. This episode won't entirely be about LinkedIn, but I'm sure that if I go and count, LinkedIn will be said at least 400 times. But I want to start there because it's how Liam and I first got connected. It's how each of us have built our business. It's a core part of our business development strategy. And we have some shared perspectives on how powerful that can be for personal and professional branding. So my first question for you, Liam, is how did you get started in this whole world? How did you find your voice on LinkedIn, and what helped you really hit your stride?
So the first time that I actually started creating content on LinkedIn was 2015. I went through a pretty rough year that year. I had spent 6 years at Living Social, riding that roller coaster up and then back down again. Found myself a little bit lost, didn't really know where I was going career-wise. I'd had a couple false starts at some companies that year. And I wrote an article about basically like humble pie. I was like, you can go 10 years out of college and you have all these great jobs and you have, you're flying high, you're feeling great. And then all of a sudden you get kind of kicked in the teeth, and that can happen to anybody. And it doesn't, necessarily mean that you're a bad person or that you've done anything wrong, but you are just going through the motions. And I probably wrote that article. This was before LinkedIn had a feed, right? Articles were like the only thing you could write. And so I wrote that article probably after one too many beers. And then I woke up the next morning and was like, I should delete that immediately. But I had a bunch of comments in my inbox from people that were like, that is so incredible. I can't believe that you wrote that. You wrote that so succinctly, and like you put yourself out there. I wish I could do that. And so that's the first time I kind of gapped into the fact that LinkedIn isn't really a place that people are used to seeing authenticity and vulnerability. But I didn't really do much with it from then. 4 years go by. I'd always kind of had my eye on LinkedIn, was paying attention to the platform. And then in 2019, I said, my daughter was born. I was on paternity leave. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to finally go from being the lurker to creating content on the platform. And I didn't have any type of ulterior motive. I really just wanted to talk about business and talk with other people and share my thoughts. And I wasn't really active on any other social platforms. And I liked this place. So that's what I started to do. And then 2 years after that, this was also peak COVID, right? So like I'm in a house with an infant, a toddler, and my wife, who I love dearly, but like I missed human interaction with other people. And
along with almost a billion, or what has now become a billion people online who are feeling the exact same way at the time, and they all flocked to LinkedIn for relief.
Exactly. There was like the LinkedIn and the Clubhouse contingent kind of working in parallel. And so I hosted a room on Clubhouse about LinkedIn, and then we all met on LinkedIn and hung out, and like, it was great. And then 2 years later, I had a chief marketing officer at a tech consultancy reach out to me and say that he wanted to hire me as an employer brand and talent marketing guy. And I was like, well, I'm flattered by that, but I don't have brand or marketing experience. I don't know where'd you find that, And he was like, oh, well, I've been following you on LinkedIn for 6 months and I have seen everything I need to see. With your sales ops background, I'm sure you could do the systems and the process and the outreach and the automation and the messaging fine. And then I see your LinkedIn content and I just want you to do that for us. So I took the job and it pivoted my career entirely. And that's sort of how I started to realize that LinkedIn is this magical place that can manifest serendipity. And I decided to start my own business helping people do that.
And Liam's brand stand was born.
That's right.
Yay. What I think is so interesting about that is without any ulterior motives, you just genuinely went and put your authentic point of view and thoughts and opinions out there. And someone saw something in you that you didn't even see in yourself because of that. And isn't it so interesting how that can put you on a trajectory that you were probably really meant and intended to be on, but you needed that exterior influence and a catalyst to kind of put you onto it. Isn't that kind of amazing?
It's incredible. I mean, I was very much at a point in my career where I was like I had been through 2 acquisitions, and we moved down to North Carolina from the DC area. So like, I didn't really have a local network here. And I thought to myself, like, what am I going to do now? Like, what's my next step? And I never would have thought that pivoting my career would have been a possibility because I didn't think I could do it without taking a big pay cut. I didn't think I could do it without starting from scratch. And, so that when that happened, I was like, wow, this is really powerful. And then starting my own business, like, just you find your passion and you start following it. I think, LinkedIn is always talking about how skills-based hiring is the way of the future. And I think this is a perfect example of that. We have skills and passion that don't necessarily align with the experience on our resume sometimes because the career path is winding. And so that's really sort of what drew me to the platform so much is it's just tremendous opportunity there.
And it's what I'll translate there is I think it provided you an opportunity, again, without realizing it, to show versus tell, right? Resume is all about tell. Even if you're bullet in the accomplishments to quote unquote show, you're still telling versus, like I said at the beginning, kind of like walking this walk that helps somebody realize the value that you can bring to them and how unique that can be. Because I completely agree that non-traditional career paths are going to become increasingly more prevalent. Entrepreneurship increasingly more prevalent, which is why I absolutely love being in that space. And so I'm curious what you would say to somebody out there who feels vulnerable, let's say, becoming a little bit vocal on LinkedIn or let's say in any kind of professional online community. And I talk to a lot of coaches who struggle with this because they feel like they're going to look stupid. They have all these assumptions in their head. Like, what do you say to somebody who wants to be taken seriously, wants to be genuine, but feels that vulnerability?
So the first thing that's the most blunt is to stop caring so much about what other people think about you.
Yes.
And the reason that I say that is because I was chained by that insecurity for a really long time. And once I got over that, that's when I really started to see success and really started to feel more self-confidence. The best brands attract the right audience and detract the wrong audience with the same amount of effort, right? So if you're just being yourself and you're putting your content out there and you're talking about what lights you up, what you're good at, how you do it, who you do it for, the things that you find fascinating, and giving people a window into your soul a little bit, like you can't really go wrong in that front. And I think that the challenge that most people have is that, like you said, they're worried about them looking stupid, or they're worried about somebody judging them and sort of scrolling past them because they're like, I have this opportunity for this career coach. I want to work with a career coach, but I don't like the way that they said that thing, so I'm not going to work with them. The truth is that in that scenario, your content probably did you a favor because you are letting people self-select whom they're going to trust with their coaching partnership. And if they don't like you, if you're being authentic and putting yourself out there and they don't really, that doesn't resonate with them, then they're not your ideal client.
Yeah.
And rather than getting on the phone and talking with them and figuring that out with an hour of your time, they're doing it for you. And that's fantastic. And so once you start to think about it with like a more open mind, saying, if I keep putting myself out there and I keep being authentic and I keep sharing who I am and how I do what I do and why I do what I do, people will be attracted to that who want to work with you. And that ends up being a better way to drive leads anyways.
Yeah.
So that's
And
my,
it helps
that's
the
my
whole,
first.
it helps the whole funnel, right?
Yeah.
Your top of the funnel, your everything you're dumping in becomes already a little sorted.
Yep.
Or a little vetted or a little higher quality and a little tighter. And then what you're helping them do is move through the funnel and get to know you before you've ever directly put any time into that. And while that might seem a little bit cold, in a way it's not, because you're letting them see a little inside of you, and it creates some sort of intimacy that I always talk about, KLT, that increases the know, like, and trust factor before you ever actually get on a sales call or a discovery call with them. And so now what you've created is an ecosystem of the right leads in the right place at the right time, and your conversions become much, much better. And the quality of the people coming in is who you want to work with. I'll tell you my experience about 2.5 years ago, because you and I kind of like passed in the, because I've been on LinkedIn. I think I am within the first 1 million users on LinkedIn.
Wow, nice.
But for some reason, LinkedIn doesn't think I joined until 2012, and I think it has something to do with premium, and we'll just leave it there. It irritates me just slightly because I looked at my user number and I think it's like it has an 8 at the beginning. And it's 6 digits. So, and so I've been in since like, the creation of time. And so I was always there. Phase 1 was I update this when I get a job, which is what LinkedIn was for years. Right. Which is why there wasn't genuine content, because there wasn't content. And then I came into the career coaching space, and I'm like, well, I know LinkedIn is my jam. I basically got my first client because of a comment I posted on LinkedIn. Nice. And I was like, okay, this is where I want to be. And where you and I passed was that during the pandemic, I was so busy, I ignored it. And I just didn't have time for it. And I'm so mad that I let myself slide from so many conversations that were happening, because I've had to kind of build that back up now that there are so many people on the platform, and it's been harder. So a little over 2 years ago, I made the commitment of like, I'm going to get to X number of followers, not because I wanted the metric, but because I knew what it would have to force me to do. And that's when I started really kind of engaging with other people who were in there a lot. And it's weird. You guys might think we're weird, but Liam is just as much my friend as my neighbor. We've never met in person, but I know I can go to Liam and say, Liam, I need something. And in life or work. And you would be there. And that's what's been so cool about this, like showing up really authentically, is it has helped create an inner circle that's amazing. And as I continued to do that, I found my lead generation was exactly what we were talking about. I was getting more of the right type of clients, my ideal, my real ICP that we talk about, ideal client profile, I was starting to get just because I was being me. And for those of you that know me, fashionista who's like a runway model in New York is not going to jive with, short little big butted Angie who probably doesn't wash my hair enough and has a lot of granola attire, right? Like,
oh my God, that's the
best. It just weeds it out from the get-go.
Yeah. I mean, that you said it perfectly, right? There's a million people out there that do what you do. There's millions and millions and millions of people that do what you do. There's only one person that does it the way you do it. And there's only one person that does it with your personality. And so if you're not putting your personality out there, you're immediately watering down your potential for opportunity, because you're not shining a light on what makes you unique.
Yeah.
And I think, most people who are in the service-based business or, in the coaching business are pretty charismatic folks with personalities that people like to have around for the most part, or at least they find them useful. And so it doesn't make sense to hide it, right?
Yeah.
Just like, well, it's like biting your nose is bite your face, right? What are you worried about?
You're not leveraging your best asset. And
exactly.
And ultimately this comes down to, and this is, I'm sure you've seen this with like newer business owners who have come to you for support, creating thought leadership on LinkedIn. they think they have to appeal to everyone because otherwise the gene pool is not large enough. But we know that if you try to be everything to everyone, you're going to be nothing to no one, which is where you just have to be comfortable knowing you'll hit where you want to hit and you won't hit where you're not going to hit. And there's likely very little fallout or blowback to happen there. It's just a pass by.
Yep. Pass by. That's it. You don't even know it's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think like my phrase for business and life is from Yates. There are no strangers here, only friends you haven't yet met. And I think that LinkedIn is a phenomenal online representation of good old relationship building, right? You walk into a room, you extend a handshake to somebody, you meet them, you learn a little bit about who they are. You have a good chat. If you have a good chat, you maybe have another chat that's a little bit more focused and specific. And you just let it ride from there, right? Stop trying to put a square peg in a round hole, and stop worrying about your content alienating you from opportunities that you don't even know exist yet. Find folks that you resonate with, that your stuff resonates with, and you'll be laying the foundation for a much better partnership. So that's really kind of my take on it.
You said something I've told people before. I look at LinkedIn as a giant networking event. It just happens to be online and in person, or versus in person. If there's one thing this extreme extrovert loves to do, it's go work a room. I have a room of 1 billion people to work.
Yeah.
Right.
It's amazing.
Don't squander the asset.
It's also way more efficient, right? If you think about in-person network, I mean, I am notoriously bad at in-person networking where I live. And a lot of it is because I view being away from my computer as an opportunity cost, because I can't scale myself as quickly in person as I can online.
Yep.
In the 2.5 hours that I go to a networking event and maybe have 5 or 10 conversations, 1 or 2 of them that actually happens to be fruitful, if that, I could have dropped 100 comments on people's posts who are in my ICP and then put my brand on their radar, right? That is a more useful purpose for me than the in-person thing. And you're just also, you're limited by too many things with in-person networking. I love in-person networking. Don't get me wrong, right? Like I love to work a room too, but there's an opportunity cost associated with doing so, right? You're limited by the geography. You're limited by who's in the building. You're limited by the conversations that you can actually manage to have, right? There's people having conversations and you're like, well, maybe I should go to that person. They're not talking to anybody right now. Like you don't have any control over that situation. And if
it's a crapshoot.
Yeah.
It's a total crapshoot. Who is in the room is a crapshoot versus online, which yes, you lose a little of the energy. You can curate the room.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I want to go back to something we mentioned earlier, which is the pass by. Because I'll say that to people who really like, they don't want to start creating content. They feel like they'll look stupid, especially to their peer set. And because coaches tend to be high energy, they're type A, often perfectionism. So like that whole cycle of, am I going to look dumb and are people going to make fun of me? Comes in. And what I usually tell them is people have their heads so far up there, you know what, that if you do say something stupid, they're not going to pay attention. And so what have you really got to lose? So in an effort to display that vulnerability can actually be a superpower, I'm curious if you've ever had a moment where you shared too much or something that you wish you hadn't shared.
I don't think I've shared something that I wish I hadn't shared. I mean, those articles that I wrote in 2015 were definitely very raw and very vulnerable, and they felt super strange to have out there. I think it was also harder for me when I was a W-2 employee just starting out. Like I didn't really know what I was really doing on there and what they thought about it. But I share vulnerable stuff all the time, right? Like, I mean, I talk about my weight loss journey, which, you know, I have lost 39 pounds or 40 pounds in the last year and a half. And I've got still another 100 that I want to go. And a lot of people would feel really uncomfortable sharing posts about their progress of their weight loss, or, you know, even still, like my posts were about how it's a lot more slow rolling than I would have liked. So it's not even like the full celebration of it all. It's like, this sucks and I'm still grinding, but I'm chipping away at it, right? Which I think is a more important message to convey, because success doesn't happen overnight. But I've moved well beyond the point where I am embarrassed by very much, because I just am who I am, right? Like Popeye is my favorite philosopher and that's what he says. And like, I don't see a reason to be bashful about it or to, hold it in, because you're just doing yourself a disservice. You never know what might happen if you put it out there.
And you're doing a disservice to the people who are on the other end of needing to hear it.
Totally.
And there's multiple little pieces there I want to point out that even 10 years ago, when LinkedIn was not what it is now, there was a moment of, I'm going to say, panic keystrokes on a keyboard, boom, put something so raw and vulnerable out that I'm sure when you read it now, you're like a little cringy, right? Because I read stuff I wrote 5 years ago and I'm like, yeesh. But it created the foundation for this whole catalyst that is what it is now. And I think what is so interesting of sharing something like weight loss journey, I have been, I love that because it inspires somebody else who might be in the same place, but there's so many ties to professionalism there as well. Side note, the s'mores photo will forever be my favorite photo of you. Speaking of the weight loss journey.
Yeah, and that one was my best performing post of the year somehow.
I bet it. Because what I've found is that, and this is where I want to go, is how the personality of LinkedIn has changed, which I know has ruffled some feathers, but I think you and I are both reaping the rewards and maybe part of that personality change, because I'll tell people all the time, my best post of last year was my bruised legs, because I learning how to mountain bike and just on a river trip. And when you're hopping in and out of a rubber boat, you bruise the crap out of yourself. Plus, if you poke me hard, I'm going to have a 5-inch bruise. And so I posted my bruised legs, and it performed better than any piece of here's 10 resume tips or here's 10 ways to grow your business posts I could create. Yep. And I'm finding, and I would love for you to talk a little bit about this kind of authenticity piece that we have in common, seems to be trending because people really want to connect in that very clearly human way. Yeah,
totally. I think we're witnessing the humanization of the professional workplace through LinkedIn. Everybody shows a little bit of their human side. People go to the office, people work with their colleagues, they talk about their family, they talk about what they did that weekend, they talk about running a marathon, they talk about all sorts of stuff, right? But somehow you think about LinkedIn and you're like, I can't put that out there, right? But if
a future employer might see it,
right, and your future employer might, judge you for it and withhold the opportunity because of it. And I'm thinking to myself, if they're that fickle, I don't want to work with them.
Bingo.
Right? Like my personality is as much of an asset as my skills are, probably more so. And so if I want to maximize the opportunities that I have, I'm going to maximize my personality on the platform. Yeah. And I think that's what we're seeing as a shift. And, LinkedIn talks about value-based content. I think a lot of people misconstrue value-based content. Value-based content is not a top 10 list that funnels you into a course that you take for $197 so that, some guy can fill their pocket. Yeah. Value-based content is, what's your life experience? What's your journey? Mm-hmm. What are you going through at the moment? How did you get through it? How can you help other people who are struggling with the same issue get a different perspective on it? Like, that is value-based content. And self-discovery and self-reflection and self-growth, like all of those things are part of being human. And I think LinkedIn wants us to share the human experience through a professional lens.
And it was interesting when I want to say came back to, because I wasn't completely absent from LinkedIn, but I wasn't nurturing and contributing for a few years. When I came back, that shift had started because pre-COVID, literal value. Top 10 deep researched posts about what Forbes has to say about small business or whatever were the norm. Mini blogs were pretty much the norm. And that has shifted substantially to the fact that I rarely post anything without a picture now, because otherwise it's not going to be seen. And I think that there's a convergence of things happening here that, post-COVID, the need for connection never went away. And I believe it exacerbated how disconnected we are, even though there's the perception of connection. Yeah. And now you introduce AI. Humans want humans. So if you can be a human, go be a human.
Yeah, totally.
I love humans. And I think this is a really good misconception to talk about, is that thought leadership has to be like almost like one dimensional, right? I write researched articles about my domain. No,
Yep.
you can support that. Again, you can show instead of tell.
Yeah, totally. I mean, there's I don't know, the stat is that like people have 60,000 thoughts a day. One of them is bound to be worth sharing with somebody. So put
And
it
one
out
of
there.
them over the course of a year will inevitably actually get
Yeah,
some traction.
you can, it's basic math. But I think that the other thing that I tell people to think about is to think about LinkedIn like a journal that you'd share with friends, family, and colleagues. And
Ooh.
and that journal is where you put some of the things that your wins, some of the things you're struggling with, some of the things you're working through, some of the learnings that you have, things that regrets, like, but it's not over the professional boundary because you're keeping that audience in mind. And that way you shy away from anything that's too controversial necessarily. I mean, controversy can also be a good thing, and some people post that plenty, but by and large, right, LinkedIn rewards positivity and growth based content, and I think there's no shortage of that, right? We have so many thoughts in our head about, am I doing this the right way, am I doing this the wrong way? Like,
Yeah.
just talking about it makes you more human, and there's inevitably somebody out there who can learn from what you're saying. So I think of it that way. I also think about LinkedIn a bit like a legacy platform, and I don't mean that in like Fortran COBOL. I mean that in like, you are essentially documenting your lived experience
What you leave behind. Yeah.
in business, right?
Yeah.
And that is a very personal thing. It's not just clean cut professional. Like, I want my kids to be able to look back at the content that I'm putting on this platform and be like, that was my dad building a business when I was 8 years old, right? Like, they can't grasp it right now, but they will be able to in the future. And so I view it that way as well. As I don't think it's a passing fad, right? Microsoft owns them. They're massive. Like, everybody needs jobs. They've got their tentacles everywhere. So like, I think it's highly likely that all the stuff I put out here will be still visible when my kids are older.
I mean, it's been here for 20 years. It's the OG, by the way,
Yeah,
y'all. It
totally.
existed before Facebook.
Facebook
I don't
and Twitter.
consider it social media. I consider it social networking. That way you can look at it a little bit differently. And I want to point out that, even though I said we weren't going to go down the LinkedIn rabbit hole, we're down the LinkedIn rabbit hole. Have we said LinkedIn 487 times yet, like I promised? But
At least.
I want to point out that essentially what we're talking about is how to build an an authentic, genuine brand.
Yeah.
And if LinkedIn, and since you're here watching or you're listening out in podcast land, LinkedIn is a fantastic platform to supplement or to be a core element of it. And what's really neat about it is it gives you the ability to kind of test things out in real time, right? So, what if I rebrand slightly? Who's going to be attracted if I talk about X? Who am I going to get, or am I going to get feedback if I talk about Y? And so it can actually help you in real time find your voice and establish your brand that then radiates out into all of your channels.
Yep. Totally.
So I want to talk about 3 pillars because this is a good point to bring it in. So if you want to use LinkedIn as maybe a platform to either test or refine or establish your voice to then radiate out,
Radiate.
Liam has
I
a
like
little
that. Radiate.
strategy. Radiate. I like that. Yeah. Liam has a little strategy. And here's what's funny about this 3-pillar strategy is Liam and I, shameless plug, did a 4-session workshop on how to grow your thought. What did we call it? Linked influence. Right. And in real time, in one of these sessions, Liam starts talking about the 3 pillars. And I held up this little whiteboard that I had sitting here, and it literally had the exact same 3 pillars on it. And I had no idea they were coming up. And I was like, okay, man, do we do a lot of things similarly? But I don't want to steal your thunder. Explain this kind of idea of like your 3 things that you can talk about as a great way for some of you out there who might be struggling with blank page or vulnerability to get started. This is a great strategy.
Yeah. So it's funny because when I was posting before I started doing any of the personal branding stuff, I was told by people, they were like, what are you even doing here? Like, your content's all over the place, right? And because I was just here for the community vibes, which most people think is an oxymoron. But I started to think about, like, how do I help people compartmentalize the way that they want to think about content on the platform? And I landed on 3 buckets. The first and actually I stole this from you because I saw this on your slide. You said scope of genius. I think I said like, I don't know. I had some other far less eloquent title on mine. It was like what you do or like what you're good at. But basically, your scope of genius is what you do, why you do it, how you do it, who you do it for. That, by and large, are your sales and marketing posts. These should be 60% of your content, let's say, right? You want to make sure that your audience knows what you do, why you do it, all that good stuff. Like people tend to shy away from that, myself included. Like it feels like self-promotion, so you feel weird about it. Got to do it. Second is fascination. There will be overlap, but fascination is theoretically the things that you like to do when you're outside of work, right? So, what types of books do you like to read? Are you a Harry Potter person? Do you like Star Wars? Like sports, drama, climbing, whatever. But people like to hear people talk about what lights them up. If they like to see your passion, they like to feel your passion. And so you have to share that sometimes because you don't just want to be a robot who's always talking about what you do. I mean, there are definitely people who treat LinkedIn that way and they swear by that approach, but I disagree. I want people to understand the whole person, right? I have had enough conversations that start with, hey, what's your favorite hot sauce, that then turn into new business for me, to know that I shouldn't just be banging the drum of what I do all the time. I should be showing some other things. So I talk about AI, tech startups, cryptocurrency, like technology gadgets. Like I'm an early adopter of most of that stuff. And yes, hot sauce and barbecue, like those are big parts of my life. I like food and I like hot sauce. So I talk about that probably 30% of the time, right? Like articles that I've read that I think are really interesting, random ideas, random thoughts. And then the third bucket is what I call windows into your personal world. And that's really the stuff that's a little bit more vulnerable, a little bit more uncomfortable to hit publish on, but it's also a window into your soul, right? And it's like giving people that understanding of what really makes you tick and how you really think and like your human side. It's the most human type of post you can put out there. And as a result, it generally performs pretty well because LinkedIn is a supportive, generous, emotionally intelligent platform. And that's the kind of content that gets elevated. So I'd say that's usually like 10% of my posts is, I'll throw something out there once every 2 or 3 weeks that just touches on what it's like to be a working parent or a first-time founder or the weight loss journey, right? And it's not always hunky-dory, flowers. It's sometimes stuff you're struggling with. And that's even better because people will lift you up and try and help you out. So those are my 3 recommendations for content pillars.
So to recap, it's zone of genius, scope of genius, or what you know.
Yep.
Second would be passions. And I'm also going to say maybe like your lifestyle type stuff, because then the third is you. Yep. So you heard Liam run through his, which is he knows branding. He knows how to use LinkedIn. He is nerdy down to a T with how to use LinkedIn. Second would be all of the barbecue, the kids, the piles of laundry, the chili pepper. And then third is that kind of like heart stuff, let's call it. And so that should hit. And now as you follow Liam's content, you'll start seeing those 3 things pop up. It can be all 3 in one post. It could be 1 or 2 in one post. If you're following me, what you'll see is me talking about careers in the business of coaching, which is what I know. What I love is our outdoor adventure life. And I talk a ton about the antics that we are all doing, the dog, the cat, and all those kinds of things. And the third for me is what I'm learning and why I'm doing all of those things and how integrated life and work have become because of it. Because that's really the thing I want to inspire people to do. So it just gives you a specific example of how our 2 frameworks look, and you'll start to see those themes as you kind of engage with us. But it's a really great way to help the blank page. And guess what? You have a little tool called ChatGPT that you can pump some of this stuff into and say, here's what I do, here's who I'm trying to talk to, and here's what I think my 3 areas of discussion are. Can you help me just get started? Yeah. And once you rip the Band-Aid off and you prove to yourself that no one's going to come and call you stupid and create a flame war, as long as you don't poke the bear and talk about the green banner, you will be okay.
Yeah, totally. It makes total sense. And I think some people will also sometimes push back on the fascination component. And I love how you said what you know, what you love, and then who you are, right? Like those 3 kind of, that's another really good way to talk about it that I'll probably steal.
That's okay.
But
Given.
I talk to a lot of people who are like, well, the fascination piece, like, why would I post things that aren't related to what I do for a living? And that's because not everybody in your network is a client. Not everybody in your network will be a client. You have plenty of people in your network who just like you as a person and as a professional, and they want to lift you up and they want to support you. So you have to give them something to actually keep following, right? Because you never know. They could send a post that you wrote to somebody that they had a conversation with in their network about working with a coach and be like, oh, you know what? Per our conversation last week, this is one of my favorites, right? They don't say my favorites because your advice is so spot on every single time when they're not actually looking for a job or when they're not looking for the coaching services you provide. They say it because of your personality, right? You're their favorite because they like who you are. So if you don't put that out there, you are doing yourself a disservice and missing out on that chance for like people to talk about you when you're not in the room, which is exactly the sort of core point of personal branding.
Yes, exactly. And personal branding, professional branding, however you want to look at it, is just branding without the word in front of it, right? And and you're missing a differentiator that actually it tells people how you do the work you do, because there's many people who can do the work you do. And the how is generally what makes people connect. It's the human part. So this is a perfect time to ask you a kind of a couple like bring it all together questions. What is something that, and I think that we might be hovering around it, which is why I'm bringing it up now. What is something that you think people misunderstand about the cost of, like, let's say, safe branding or lack of branding, or maybe even worse, feeling like they have to stick to the norm? What are they missing out on?
I mean, you're missing out on opportunities finding you that otherwise wouldn't, is my sort of point. Like, I had so many things happen to me since I just let go of the fear of being judged and what other people think, that would not have happened to me. I would not have been invited to LinkedIn's Creator Accelerator program if I hadn't started sharing my voice. I would not have gotten that career pivot that led to an acquisition that led me to have enough runway to start my own business if I hadn't started sharing things myself. I wouldn't have the self-confidence that I have now if I didn't just embrace who I was, come hell or high water, and just start putting it out there. And so I think, especially for those of us who are self-employed or, entrepreneurs, your personality is one of your biggest assets, and you have to start treating it that way, and stop worrying about what other people will think about what you say. So that's what I would say. Was that what you were thinking?
That's totally it. Well, I was thinking what you were thinking. I wanted your authentic, genuine response, Liam. But there's a couple words in there I want to bring out. The fear word is a huge component of this, and fear will hold you back more than anything else in life will, more than any failure ever will. And so you got to get over yourself. Just there you go. Direct to the point, get over yourself, rip the Band-Aid off, start doing the things.
Yeah. I mean, yes, it's uncomfortable. Yes, it's, not something you're used to, but everything that is worth doing is usually uncomfortable, right? It's outside of your comfort zone. So you got to do it. And I know that's cliche, but it's true.
Most cliches are cliches for a reason, and it's because most of them are true. I say that all the time. Growth doesn't happen in the comfort zone. Like, come on. So true.
Yeah, totally. It just makes it makes so much sense to just, and I can't even, like, liberating is the word that I use. It is liberating to be yourself.
Yes.
And just put it out there and trust that the right people will find you. And, like, yes, there's strategies that you can employ to increase the likelihood that that will happen, right? I teach people how to use Sales Navigator to build a targeted audience, but you are you could do that till you're blue in the face. And if you're not putting yourself out there, you're connecting with people for no reason. They're not going to see it. They're not going to care. And so you have to do the whole package.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head with being anybody other than who you genuinely are is exhausting. And I don't want to say, like, to a point, but there is a line between the keeping that to a professional level and, like, bearing a certain level of stuff raw, and you keep it there. And that doesn't mean you're being disingenuous or inauthentic.
Right.
However, the minute you just let it go and you give up a little bit of that iron fist control and you say, I'm just going to put out my genuine thoughts on things. You will be amazed at what happens because authenticity is a magnet.
Yeah. I mean, the picture of me dressed as a s'more has 750,000 impressions and 7,000 engagements.
And one of them is in my brain forever.
I could not have predicted that. And that was a post that I didn't spend hours writing. It was a post that I whipped up on the fly while I was trick-or-treating with my kids.
Yep. And those are usually the best, the on the fly, the, 30,000th thought of your 60,000th a day that you decide to just throw out there is usually the thing that sticks. And now everybody who's listening is going back and looking for the Halloween of 2024 post. That is when it was, everybody. And now you can follow Liam's journey since then, which would be amazing.
Probably not a whole lot of posts about s'mores on LinkedIn. So if you just search Liam Darmody and s'more, you'll probably find it. It's also just an amazing costume idea, by the way. But that was all Meg. I couldn't take any credit for that.
Oh, really? It was Meg?
I was definitely, you could imagine, I was like grumbling, like, this is so stupid. Why am I doing this? Blah, 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 blah.
So of course I'm going to use it for LinkedIn content.
Yeah, naturally.
So speaking of how we find you, how does everybody follow along in your knowledge, your passions, and your life journey and wisdom? You've got classes, you've got consulting. How do we find all of it?
Well, LinkedIn is definitely the best place to find all of it because that's where I have it hosted. I have a website, liamsbrandstand.com, but admittedly, it's not as good as my LinkedIn profile. So LinkedIn is the place to do it. There's only 3 Liam Darmodys on LinkedIn, and only one of them is in North America. That's me. So
wait, there's 2 other Liam Darmodys in the world?
There's another Liam Darmody who is from Australia, who I had beers with in 2013. I didn't tell you. That's amazing. Yeah. I was in Sydney for work and I found him and was like, let's get together for dinner. And then the other one's in Ireland and he's never responded to any of my LinkedIn posts, which I don't care about. So it's fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
So, and obviously Liam and I are connected and you can hop, if you are watching or listening on LinkedIn, hop over to his profile, follow him. If you're listening out there in podcast land, we will include these in some notes and you can track Liam down on LinkedIn. He's pretty easy to spot. But give us a quick nod to your Maven course that you've got.
Yeah. So in January, I launched a group learning cohort course on maven.com, which is a platform founded by the former founder of Udemy. I love it. It has a really robust sort of structure for a syllabus and makes it a lot easier for me to facilitate learning. And I've just really enjoyed teaching people. I'm a wild extrovert like you are, and I miss the team dynamics of being in a smaller organization, and having a cohort-based course is fantastic because it's like you have a little team that you work with every month or every 2 months, and you get to hear them learn from each other and them learning from you and mind melding. And it's just awesome. It's been really energizing and invigorating. And I've gotten some really good feedback on it. So that is something that I'm running pretty much every month. I limit the cohorts to 10 seats because I want to make sure that it's intimate and that there's a lot of ROI there. But I'm really enjoying it. So I'll probably be offering that every month into perpetuity.
We got one coming up.
Yes, we do. May 22nd.
I love it. I wish that we could keep talking because we could do that for a really long time.
Yeah,
but we'll keep everybody in suspense of the next one / our banter back and forth on LinkedIn posts. And what I want to just reinforce for everybody out there, whether it's on LinkedIn or whether it's in life, be yourself, trust your authenticity, and find that voice. And so I'm going to challenge you this week to find one thing that you can do to brand yourself and be more you, whether it's a tweak to your content, an honest introduction, a new pillar, drop me a comment, drop Liam a comment, and tell us what some of your authentic branding goals are, because we would both love to hear from you and are both here to support you. I'm Angie Callen. Liam, thank you so much for joining me today. This has been another amazing and authentic conversation, and I'm grateful for you and your time and your wisdom.
Thanks for having me, Angie. Always love chopping it up with you.
Yeah. Thank you all for hanging out and listening to another episode of No More Mondays. I'll be here next week, same time, same channel, for another edition. Until then, I hope you live and work authentically.